Okay, there it is. We're going live now. Okay, here we go.
Okay. I was like, I ain't pressed nothing. I don't know.
No, you're good. All right. So we're live now. All right.
All right.
Infernal
Awesome.
greetings, infernal blessings to all. Welcome to this spectacular evening we're about to have with the young lady, the Cosmic Serpent here, representing. We will be discussing, asking questions, and just freestyling and vibing. After the beginning part, we will open it up for you all to ask questions. Okay? For you all to ask questions. So don't forget to start getting your questions ready and type it out. All right. I mean, type it into the chat room so we could see it. Okay. So this evening, let's begin. Like I said, infernal greetings. Introduce yourself, introduce your contact information and social media or anything else. Then we'll ask that again towards the evening, at the end of the evening.
All right. Absolutely. So I am the Cosmic Serpent. I am online. I've been online for a while as the Cosmic Serpent, but my most, used platform would be Instagram. So if you wanted to find my page on Instagram, it's the.cosmic.serpent. On my Instagram, I have my website and my, where everybody puts it in their bio piece. And I have information on my website about myself. I have ventured over to TikTok to do some fun things there. And so it's the Cosmic Serpent there as well. And that's pretty much all I have as far as social media platforms with myself. I'm not too many other places, but the best place to contact me if you have questions would be Instagram, or if you just needed to say hi or anything, Instagram is where I am most. So yes.
Cool. Now, let's begin by, first of all, how long have you been on your spiritual journey, left hand path, whatever?
Oh, well, I guess if you want to say as a cumulative, as a baseline for years, a very long time without telling my age, right? So I won't tell
Right.
my age, but I will say that my interest and practice of some sort began in high school, stops
Okay.
for a very long time, finding yourself as a 20 something. And then in college, I didn't do very much of anything, went through the whole hotepery thing in college. So I wouldn't even call that a practice. It was basically just an identity crisis thing that you
Right.
go through when you're 20s. And I would say that a serious spiritual practice, probably, after college. So I'll say around, I'll say for a good time between 2006 until now. I have been on the path that I'm on now. I'll say that. So, you go all around until you figure out what you want to do. Then when you figure out what you want to do, you still don't know what you want to do until you grow and you learn and you develop and you go through all these things. So yes. So since
Okay.
2006, yes.
All right. So, speaking of growing and learning,
Mhm.
what would you say on your journey is the most important aspect that you've learned walking the path you're currently on?
Most important aspect.
Mhm.
Important. I think, I don't think, I know. The most important aspect is the the work that you do to figure out who and what you really are, and how you move in your environment, your current state. So I know a lot of practitioners on this path will put the emphasis on other states, other worlds, other timelines, other experiences, past, and I always want to say, yeah, we all develop. And there was a time that, everybody talked about Egypt for everything. Everything was Egypt, Egypt. And then if you really think about it, that doctrine and that system of learning is very important because it is relevant. You can make it relevant,
Right.
but we are not preparing for an afterlife. So we are not doing this work to make sure that we can be broke and pitiful here, and then we get to the afterlife, we're venerated. This is not the focus of our work. I think the focus of the work and the most important thing would probably be to learn to incorporate what I'm learning to make this existence the best it can be, and to learn about myself. I think that's the most important thing.
Bingo. I really agree with that. Especially because, as you said, you just said clearly, sometimes people tend to live as space cadets. So what do I mean by that? Yes, multiverses, gateways, tunnels, etc. All that, yes, it's relevant in your work, but your work is to bring or manifest into this current environment that we exist in, so that you can master yourself to the greatest ability and be abundant in everything and anything, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, financially, whatever the case. And I think sometimes you said it, like, you're right. Sometimes we get lost in the sauce, so to speak, and people are so caught up in ancient Kemet. But what are you doing today if you're not manifesting and representing as if you were, from that time? Then what are you doing today? So, for example, you have people that will claim they're a pharaoh, but we know the opposite is true. Right. They can call themselves Pharaoh, Ra, Aseti, something. Doesn't matter, because if you're not manifesting the results in the physical, then you call yourself a hot jelly sandwich, and that doesn't mean nothing unless you manifest it. So what? Yeah,
like a pharaoh that hates their job, right? A pharaoh that hates their home life. How's that work?
Pharaoh that's still in the basement chilling. You know what I mean? So let me ask you this. So how exactly do we get away from zooming out into that mindset of altered realities and everything else, so that we can stay more grounded in the reality we currently exist? Now, by no way, shape, form, or fashion are we negating that these things are important in your work. Yes, but they're important not for you to get lost over there. They're important for you here. So what do you think is a good way for people not to get lost in their journey over there? And I'm gonna say this before you go, right? So I had an individual. You see stuff on your feed. We all see it on Instagram or Facebook. And this individual, claim all of a sudden. Hold on, let me lower my goddamn. Okay, so this individual claimed that they were a high priest from the Anunnaki. Okay, right there, I'm lost. Okay, I'm like, okay, hold on now. High priest from the Anunnaki, and they speak the serpent language, and it's a frequency language of the serpent. Like, okay.
What, like parcel tongue, like Harry Potter? Like, what do you mean?
It's not really called parcel tongue because it was revealed to her. See, the problem I have with that is it sounds good to an individual, to people listening. It sounds good, but that's your subjective reality. I can't co-sign that. Sounds good, but what I notice is a lot of times, left hand path, right hand, middle, I don't care what path people, they all get lost in the Messiah, the great grandeur mentality and mindset, and forget that they still just as fucked up now in that altered reality or altered personality or persona you created is not changing your current existence. So how do we stay grounded away from that?
Well, I feel like there's a couple of points that I can make on that, but I think the most important thing that I want to say, like the first thing that's on the tip of my tongue, is that if you're not growing and evolving, you might as well just give up. I mean, this path is about evolution. This path is about finding the depths of yourself, changing, growing, evolving, learning, so seeking. What are we doing? What are we doing here if we're not evolving and changing? So that's the first thing. Now, I'm not saying that everybody evolves and changes into a way that's grounded, you know what I mean? Because that comes with a lot of other decisions that you have to make. But like the overarching theme of that is that if you're not evolving, if you're still, if the information that you have that you started with is the same information that you have now and it's still not working, then unfortunately, that this is, you're wasting your time. But with the importance of staying grounded, I found that that is a decision that you have to make based on your level of perception of yourself. So if you are doing things that keep you in these outer realms, or you're not being able to like connect the two, you can't bring heaven down to the earth, you can't manifest, you can't work with the processes that you're actually incorporating into your practice, that's a form of escapism. And then what happens is that unfortunately it becomes spirituality as a badge, and you can say, oh no, I don't have to have a good life, I'm a master in the shadow realm. What do you mean? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I can speak the serpent language. I don't need to have money in my bank account. Are you crazy? Like, who are you? And then it becomes like this thing. So I think the importance of staying grounded, and the thing that I see the most, and when I'm working with like people, or if I just see people, is the lack of decisions that they've made based on their healing and their shadow work, and the lack of decisions that they've made on practicality. So, I came down out of the rafters when I found out, like, and everybody knows I've had my process. I've been here, I've been there, but we evolve and we grow. Right. I come down out of the rafters when I look around and be like, you know what? I'm supposed to be on this path, and I'm supposed to be getting everything that I want, living as deliciously as possible, experiencing all of these things that are going to enliven my spirit. My spirit is it's here. So we live in the here and now. So it's a decision that you have to make that's not necessarily a spiritual decision. And once you make the decision that you want to better your life, then everything that you do has to have a purpose. So nothing that I do in my spiritual practice anymore is for nothing. Like I can have these crazy experiences. I can say, oh my God, Ravana, I went to Venus last night in my dreams. So the fuck what? So, did you bring any money back from you, Venus, for me? No, like, what did you learn? What did you learn while you were there? So it's like, you have to make that practical decision to be like, all right, how is this working for me? And, you're a businessman, I work tons. I know, like, I hate to waste time. And it's not even it's an illusionary thing. And everybody says, oh, time isn't real. It has meaning because you give it meaning, but I hate to waste time. So if you're doing something that's futile, it's a waste, but you have to make that decision from a very non-spiritual perspective, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. But I asked that because, we've all, through our journeys, we've all encountered people, who are literally in between, and I don't, I like to hear other people's perspective, because dealing with that sometimes can be a little bothersome, because you're trying to keep them grounded, but they keep wanting to go to Spookville. Yeah. And I don't have time to go to Spookville. I'm here now. Right. You know what I'm saying? Do you go to Spookville in your own time?
Right.
But my thing is, okay, with the environment, the climate, all these things that are manifesting, going cuckoo haywire, like here in Florida, we haven't had rain in 2 weeks. This is Florida now. We really rain every so often. We haven't had rain, I literally think, 2 to 3 weeks. If we did, we had a drizzle. And for the first time, I've seen my grass turn brown. Florida grass usually stays green year round.
Don't turn brown. Right? And then it's raining like crazy in LA where it doesn't rain,
Exactly. And we've had 90-degree weather since February. That's unusual for Florida.
Right. Okay?
Usually we're 70s and 80s until like May. Then we start hitting the 90s. But anyways, so we see all these things manifesting, right? We see all these inflation, all these different things.
Yeah.
And of course it could be a distraction, but it's still something that's happening because it can affect you, right? Yeah. So focusing on the self is more important than I think many of us realize, because when these things start to manifest outside of you, because the external will eventually affect the external if you're not working on yourself, right? So then people go in panic mode and they go in worry mode, and I'm tripping out, you know what I'm saying? But since we are focusing on the self, what in the aspect of the self is very important to really focus on when you begin your journey. Okay, we'll do the beginning, then intermediate, yeah, like the middle path, and then we'll go to the end. Okay, so at the beginning, what do you think someone who's new into the left hand path, dark hand path self mastery, whatever they want to call it, what do you think is the main focus at the beginning?
I think the main focus at the beginning of anything that you want to be successful for with, especially on this type of a path where it's not, see, and that's the thing, like we are putting ourselves under the microscope, under the knife, on purpose. Like we're doing this on purpose. Like it's not just something that a lot of it, well, some people may have, but we didn't inherit this, like, oh, my parents did this or whatever, This is something we're doing on purpose because we want to be the best versions of ourselves while we're here. We want to have these experiences that actually help us in our lives, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the most important thing that you have to learn as a beginner, like to internalize as a beginner, is your will. Why are you doing this? Like if you can't really, really, really internalize and be able to explain the reasons why you're doing this, it might be confusing in the beginning because a lot of us have a call. It's not like, not a spooky thing, like, oh, this deity's calling me and, I don't know what else to do.
Right.
You have an affinity for this path because you have an affinity for the adversarial path. Okay. You understand how, the adversarial path can motivate you, but you can also see how it can help you in becoming the person that you want to be. But your will and your intent, like that's the first thing you have to sort in a real way. And you have to be real with yourself. Like if you're here because you want to be powerful, which is the reason I'm here,
right?
It's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're here because you want to be influential, you want to learn more about the dark side of spirituality because you're tired of being fed vanilla spirituality, be real. If you want to get women, men, money, whatever, I mean, it's not the reason that it's probably going to evolve, but the fact that you can be honest with yourself, that's the first thing. I mean, I also think one of the first things that you have to learn as well is that this is not an outward path. It does not involve externalizing anything that doesn't benefit the self, period. It doesn't involve any of that. We work with deities as a byproduct of working with our daemon. We work with other people and other systems, and we incorporate things as a byproduct of being able to know what our own energy feels like. Like it's no externalizing. When the minute you externalize a practice on this, you are no longer practicing left hand, and that's on Wikipedia. Like you can see that on Google. Like that's what that is. But it's like I think that, but that's hard. I think for a lot of people that haven't like really, really, really have a love for this, because this whole world is seeking approval, external type energy. Do you know what I mean? Yes. So it's like it's very hard to explain that to a person that doesn't have like an affinity and a love for this type of isolated expansion. So, it's very important. That's a beginning. And
that's very beautiful and well put. I just had to say that before I forget. Go ahead.
Thank you. In the middle, I think it's important to learn that you have to have some sort of like consistency, and you have to have grounding, because you need that in the beginning too. But I think once you start to get past the fact that there's not anybody else that can really do this work for you, you can read a million books, but you're not really going to figure it out until you do the work. I think in the medium part, you have to realize that there has to be something that you do that grounds yourself that nobody else can take away from you. No matter what's going on outside, no matter what you get yourself into, no matter what you read and you don't, you don't agree with, or you do agree with, or what happens in your mundane life, there has to be some sort of a grounding practice that brings you back to center, or else you're going to quit. Yep. Believe me, I know, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have something that triggers you, that sparks you, that gets you back in there, or you're going to quit. Yeah. And in the middle section, I think it's also really important to realize that if you do not understand something fully that you can explain to a 5-year-old child, your subconscious is not going to take hold of it. That means your magic is not going to work. So if we're talking and we're having these beautiful, big, grand conversations about all these different concepts, and you couldn't explain it to a 5-year-old, like your heart isn't ticking, like you're like, I can't really feel this in my heart, I'm just spewing words, your subconscious don't understand it either. So, well, so you're not going to be able to like incorporate that in an effective way if you don't really understand it, So I think the middle piece is to like, fuck everything that you do not understand, no matter what. Just get it out of your system. Like, be real with yourself. If you don't understand these words we're saying, if you don't understand this, like, it's okay to say, I don't get it, I don't know, and research it until you ad nauseum, until you understand it, because you're not going to be able to incorporate it in your work. It's just words. You know what I mean? So I think that's it. But I'll stop because you want me to go to the other one?
No, you're good, because I'm just letting you flow. Like I said, when you flow, and I ain't gonna interrupt you, but yeah, it's sometimes I think the middle path is even more important than the beginning. In the beginning, you can kind of step out before it gets too, you get too much into the oven, right? In the middle path, that's like when you really got to decide, I'm being destroyed, I'm going through the tunnels, I'm being, devoured, I'm being transformed, I'm losing things, I'm gaining things. That is the pivotal moment where we have to really say, I'm all in and I have to continue, right? Or we just do the moonwalk out like Michael Jackson. On, you know what I'm saying? Right. So I think the middle path to me is, in this journey on the left-hand path, is the most pivotal moment, because that's either do or die. This either it makes you or breaks you. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of times, and we have to be honest, a lot of times people get broken on this path because they came seeking something that wasn't apparent. They heard about the left-hand path. It became a fad or trend. But what happens when a fad or trend dies down? Right. Now you're in here, right? And you're doing some work, let's say in the tunnels of Set, and you're going through one of the tunnels, and now you're literally feeling like you're being devoured. Now your external world is going through chaos as a result of what you're going through, because it's an alchemical process, right? So you have to be dissolved eventually in order for something to be created again. Right? So now you're in this process, and when people start seeing the shit literally hit the fan in their life, people tend to literally run away from this.
Oh, yeah.
You've experienced that, because you shared and taught many people, and you were in the classes too. You saw how many people come and go. You know what I'm saying? And it's not because anything negative towards those people, but sometimes they come here with hopes and dreams. You know what I'm saying? Someone fed them a hope and a dream. Then when they get here and they say, "Oh, wait, I wasn't counting on I'm losing my relationship."
Right. Or your house, or your money, or anything, or your mind, your sanity. It's like you have seen my process, if at lengths, from when I was like younger and not online, but you have seen my process. So you understand that not only does it take like the decision to say, this is what I'm going to do no matter what, it's fucking chaos. It's a mess. It is a mess. Like when I tell people because people have asked me that don't understand what we're doing, they say, what is your practice in like a sentence? And I'll say ordering the chaos. And they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, okay, well, the aspects of your life that you perceive as chaotic, that is not a byproduct of circumstance, because there's no such thing.
Right.
That is your inner world exploited, being outwardly, expressed. If you stay in that, that means that you have no inner alchemy happening. You're not working on the right shit. So when people come and they're like, oh, I thought I was going to be like a dark magician in like 10 months, or, why aren't my spells working? Or I'm afraid at night because I'm seeing shit in my dreams. I don't know how to turn it off. It's a process, like you have that comes with it. I'm never going to sit here and say to you or anybody else that I have been this like brave person my whole entire practice, and shit that I've seen hasn't scared me to death, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I've gotten to a point in my experience with my mundane life that I wanted to just say, it nauseates me to ever think about running back to the church. That completely turns my stomach. But saying, I just want to give up everything, of course, absolutely. But it's what you do after that. Do you know what I mean? It's what you do after that that is really going to be like what makes or breaks you as you continue to go, because it gets easier. Absolutely, 100% it gets easier.
Yeah.
It does.
It does after time, but people have to know you got to hold on. You know what I'm saying? When it gets the hardest, when everything literally seems like it's hitting the fan hard, hold on, make it through to the other side, because then you'll see why you went through that process, and you'll see things start to manifest the way you've been hoping they would. Now, here's the thing, and we've said this before, what people learn on this path essentially is you don't always get what you want, you get what you need. And what you need doesn't always coincide with what you want. So therefore, you may not realize you have this unconscious to subconscious block, right? There's a blockage in your mind that just has not gone away. You've tried to meditate, you went up to the mountains, you smoked some hashish, you got surrounded with people, y'all was just, humming, all that shit. You felt a spiritual high, you was happy. That's all good, because that spiritual energy high is good. But when you come down from that spiritual high and you face the reality you're in, you're still in the same situation. Why? Because you're doing the work in reverse.
Exactly.
You're not going inside yourself. You're still focusing on the outer, looking deep, crossing your legs, meditating with your eyes closed, with locks or whatever you think. Right? You want to hold all this onto this external image that I'm deep, right?
Yeah.
But you're not really doing the internal alchemy, as you said, because when you do the internal alchemy, what happens? Well, literally, people have always said that, and then share what you have noticed happens. But many a times you're going to face a lot of your childhood programming. What do I mean by childhood programming? Your programming is just not, what your parents taught you, or being raised in a certain culture and environment. That's part of it. A lot of your programming is observed. As a matter of fact, according to some, 95% of your programming as a child comes from the things you observe. And who do you observe first? Your parents.
Right, exactly.
So when we're young, we develop this deity complex about our parents. Our parents are like everything to us. Unless you have a shit-ass, shithole parents, then you got completely opposite view. But for the most part, a lot of us had this deity idea about our parents. They were infallible. They were just so great, so divine, right? But as time went on and you start getting older, you start maturing, you start getting a sense of self, you start noticing things, you start noticing mommy and daddy ain't exactly all right. They got some effed up stuff too, right? So let's say you had an abusive daddy, but you just started noticing that. So as a man, you see that, right? And you start to, unfortunately, most of us say, I don't want to be like my parents, but we do end up being like our parents more than we realize. So
100%.
Yep. So now you're older and you find yourself as a man replicating what your dad did and start showing abusive traits or nature towards females
Right.
because of what your dad did to your mom. And you think you fought it, but that is deeper than you think because it's deep inside your subconscious. So it's like it's like a groove on a record. It's already imprinted in your mind, and you literally have to recreate or create a new groove by destroying that group, right? So now you doing this work and you start to realize, yo, I got mad aggressive traits that can be dangerous if I don't learn how to bring some kind of order to it, right? That doesn't mean that trait is negative all the way. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is it can be if you don't have any control over it, right? So when you do, you know when to use it and when not to use it. But anyway, so these traits start to manifest, and that scares the shit out of people when they start doing this work, because we have a lot of times, unfortunately, we have a delusional mindset about ourselves. Like, sometimes we think we're better than what we really are, or vice versa. Whatever the case is, sometimes we think we're not worthy of anything. See, all these things is what you deal with when you first start working. So it can feel like a ton of bricks punching you in the face, because now you're dealing with not just the thoughts, the events, but you're dealing with the emotions. That energy now is in motion and it starts to become very heavy on you, right? So then when that you're facing that, it is tough. It can be tough. We're not going to make it seem like this is a sweet and adorable path. No, it's a very hard path.
Right.
Okay? Nothing sweet about facing yourself, right? So now you're facing all these things about yourself. And what do you do? What do you do at that moment, right? Do you run or do you face it? Well, my motto is you confront it, you face it. Always face things head on. Stop running, because we've been running our whole life most of the time. Confront it.
Absolutely.
But sometimes it's harder to confront, because if I confront it, then that means I have to actually admit certain things about myself that I don't want to admit. You understand? Like, no, that's not me. Oh, yes, it's you. Because if you keep trying to shake it off and it's still there and it still keeps coming to the surface, it's either one, you haven't gone deep enough, which is not always the case, or two, it's just you. And now, can you embrace the shittiest parts of yourself?
Right.
You understand? Because nowhere in line in this work are we saying that you should destroy everything that's bullshit. That's not true. Sometimes you need some bullshit in your life. As crazy as that may sound, there's certain parts of yourself you shouldn't get rid of, right?
Yeah, you see where you live. We're here. We on this earth. You got to have something, that mirrors the energy that you're living around.
Right. Exactly. So when we face that part, now we're in this, it's working, and then you feel that burning start, that burning where like you just feel like you're lighting up from the inside, and everything is just oh my God, this is just like so much pressure in my chest. You start feeling sick. Yes, you can feel physically sick from doing this work. And why? Because your energy's trapped. Now, you're opening those blockages inside, the energy blockages, and now it starts surging through your body, and you're not ready for it. And so that energy was fed a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of, just bullshit that is now surging through your body. So you may feel sick because of it.
You're right. That's very interesting to think about that, because it depends on how you're, and that will give you like a heads up of how your magic will work in the future. Like if you have very physical symptoms, because I know that like I was a very, 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 very nervous person, nervous person. And people say, oh, you feel your nerves or anything, but that would like literally like stop me in my tracks. And you think about it and it's like, okay, like that's not common. You know what I mean? So if you're working through things, your emotions being able to be felt like that, that's you're absolutely right. It's because it's the suppression that happened is opening, and you can physically feel that. And because because energy and emotion is all like linked to the nervous system anyway. So it's very interesting that you're saying that's a, I'm just thinking about how that translates into like, people that like myself, very nervous, or people that like get sick when they have to do something, or you know what I'm saying, or this emotional release that you have when something triggers you, and think it's nervous, is your nervous system. It's very interesting. So, but you're absolutely right about that. I feel like you hit the nail on the head when you said that this is not a sweet place to be. We do. I was telling a girl that I was talking to the other day, like, we are very niche people. You know what I mean? That's why it's a very small kind of a pond, especially melanated, especially, people that have that of color, that we have carved our way out of this, you know what I mean? Because it's very niche, it's very small. You're right about that. It's not a sweet place to be. Once you realize that you have to actually change in order to have longevity, and you have to actually change. I mean, when you're talking about changing and you get what you need, not what you want. When I first started this, I didn't ever want to be visible. I didn't want you, and I know you know this. Like, I never wanted to be visible. I didn't want anybody to see me. I did not want any parts of anything that was visible, because that was for them. That was for y'all. That was not for me. I wanted to learn behind the scenes and just be as, educated as possible on the thing, but I never wanted to. But then when I started to be able to help somebody and really feel like I was helping them, and not for cloud or anything, just because you transfer what you were before to here. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you were a person before you started on the path that likes to help people, that wants to teach, that wants to, to sing, to draw, to paint, you bring that with you to your practice. And the one thing that I was somebody that always wanted to help. You know what I'm saying? So I brought that with me, and then it changed into something else. But you're right. You don't get what you want. You get what you need. And if you need to get your ass kicked, you will, depending on what you're doing. So you're right about that too.
Now, I remember when Tony used to first be in the classes, right? she would be like sitting like this, like, trying
don't embarrass me. Don't say anything.
She was like, don't call on me. I don't call upon. Yeah.
No, when I first started, I didn't have no face. I don't even want my video. Like,
I remember. Now look at it. Now you're literally lecturing and sharing and helping, because like you said, that's always been your calling. Doesn't matter which side of your journey you're on the adversarial path, you just really learn what can help individuals a little more than what the average person may be able to help them with. And what I mean by that is, you understand that sometimes we have to look at things, not sometimes, a lot of times, we have to look at things from a different lens, right? And that different lens is what the left-hand path is about. We look at the adversarial, and we start to notice that in movies like the Avengers, Thanos is speaking the truth, right? He's speaking a lot of truth there, but truth hurts. So we tend to reject that message, and they show this clearly in movies, and then they'll send the Avengers to go destroy Thanos and make Thanos, the villain, seem so wrong and so bad. But if you really just listen to what Thanos is saying, he's really on point. You could go to Doctor Strange, the first one, right? He was upset because his what was her name again in the movie?
I don't know. I don't think I've seen. I don't think I've seen. Well, I know it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Grand Supreme. That's who it is. Okay. In Doctor Strange, the first one, the Grand Supreme, right? She was tapping into the dark side to stay resourceful, energetic, and be able to continue till she found her replacement, right? But when Doctor Strange found that out, he took offense to that, because he's like, well, you tell us to stay away from the darkness, but you're the one using it too. And she's trying to break that down for him, right? Because the fact is, this is what we hear growing up. The fact is, when you really understand what the darkness represents, it's not this creepy horror-like movie type thing. The darkness just represents yourself, your individuated consciousness, looking back at your collective consciousness that you are tied into, and you're seeing yourself from the darkness and realizing, what shit show am I living in? Right? Because if you sit in the darkness, and people try this practice at home, go into a dark room and sit in the darkness, and then start to look at your life, and you'll see how you're looking at your life from a shit show perspective. Like, what the hell was I doing? What the hell was I thinking? And that is literally your individuated consciousness trying to get you to understand that you don't have to be like the sheeple. You don't have to be like everybody else. And the fact that if you follow this adversarial path, you'll start to understand why you're in darkness. Some people call it the shadow self, but the shadow self is only tapping into the darkness. It's not going directly into the void. It takes you. It's the beginning journey. So when you are individuating yourself or separating yourself, right? And some people say it's impossible because we're all connected. And yeah, that's all true. On an energetic level, we're all connected, but your consciousness doesn't have to be connected.
No.
The point is you're separating that consciousness. And the way you do that is when you go into darkness and look back into the light, and you start to see the light for what it is. Well, that's my dog acting crazy back here. Start to see the light for what it is, okay? You start to see how it's a big hodgepodge of collective conscious programming, behavior, so on and so forth. And you start to say, yo, I don't want to be a part of this. Like Satuk of Ancient Kemet said, I don't want to be a part of this shit show going on right now. I want to separate, because and when you look at a SAR, that's stagnated stasis or stagnant consciousness, and therefore can lead to a death state, which is a reflection of society today. Most people are zombies. Most people are mentally dead. Even those who claim to be woke are actually more dead than the dead sometimes. Okay.
And you can tell when in your mundane life, your decision making, the way you handle situations, the way you reflect, you know what I mean? You can tell that some people are in a dead state. Like I'm watching, I don't watch the news. I get my news in small chunks. If I want to really kind of get into what's going on, I have a source that I trust, and it's not Google. You know what I mean? It's not Google, but 90% of the time I'm not watching that. I'm just not a political person, and I refuse to be. But when I do get to a point where I'm watching this, I'm like, the decisions that you are making are not your own. Can't you tell? And we've all been there, where it's like, that's where you said people think that the collective unconscious means that we all have one consciousness. You can look at it from that perspective, but that's why I love this path, because the individuated consciousness is what's breeding our expansion, not the collective. The collective is what we're pulling from. We're drawing from that if we need, to tap into it for to work with the deity deeper, to do this, do that. You collect, you tap into it to tap into your environment, to figure out what's going on around you. But the individuated consciousness, the separativeness, is where you actually grow. And you can't change your outer environment until you do that. There's nothing. You will continue to just be like tossed around in the waves until you figure out that's where you have to like go to be able to really have a decisive way about your spirit. You know what I mean? You have to be able to do that. So you're absolutely right about that.
Now, here's what's interesting, and I'm gonna run this past you before we start taking questions from YouTube. So YouTube people, get your questions ready, start typing them in, and not go back through them. But it's listen, this is what was brought to my attention recently, right? So they say, okay, well, you're a part of the left-hand path, and the left-hand path is supposed to be individuated consciousness. So they said, check this, they said, but why is it that left-hand path people all kind of look the same, dress the same, and act the same? Listen now. That caught me on that one, because I said, you're kind of right. You're kind of right, because I started to notice that like a couple years ago, like, it's true. it's true. A lot of people in the left-hand path tend to favor Gothic. There's reasons for that, because Gothic is
Mhm.
more open-minded. There's a different look to it, all that.
Right,
But
right.
what happens is when the masses of people in the left-hand path all start to kind of replicate that, then we're basically falling right back under the same collective
Oh, yeah.
conscious and unconscious from the right hand or the gray path or whatever. And now we're back into a collective conscious, unconscious too, that
Mhm.
really is not individuating their consciousness. We're all back into a little group, right? So when
Mhm.
they said that to me, I said, you're right. You know, a lot of that is true, which is
Mhm.
why I think I've never really gravitated towards certain things, you know, externally in the left-hand path. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I've always dressed like this. I'm always gonna look like this.
You
You know
know,
what I'm
New
saying?
York
And
guy.
yeah, and you may see, you know, I may have one ring, you know, a ring
Mhm.
they put on today, like a vampiric ring that I always wear, but
Mhm.
I don't really like advertise that, and that's
Mhm.
just my personal choice. People
Oh,
who,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But to me, it's because I'm keeping my individuated consciousness as much to myself, and and expressing it as much as I can from within than without. You
Right.
understand what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
what do you feel about, like I shared with you, that, you know, that person brought that to my attention a couple years ago?
I think that it makes sense to an extent because and as we were just talking about this again, very interesting, of course, but um the people that are here, I think that it's just like if you wipe away all of the astrological associations that really mean something, and you think about regular zodiac, like, you know, people say, oh, you're a Virgo, you act this way, or you're a Leo, you act
Mhm.
this way. They group everybody together. I think that the easiest way to group people together is by, you know, their level of expression that you can see, the visual, and how they maybe act. I think that there is a bit deeper because not only do a lot of people on this path gravitate to the like gothic side, a lot of people on this path have been very, very hurt. A lot of people on this path have struggled with addiction. A lot of people on this path have been shunned by society in some type of way because of how they are, and their affinity for this path is a shadow of that. So I think that if there is a common thread that is like that's real, and not just because, you know, they're trying to be like everybody else, and that consciousness is like, you know, like it becomes religious again. I think that's the thread that's real, because most of us are here because we've had a hard fucking life and we want to change it. That's it. That's the real thread. Now, once you get to be in the aspect of the left-hand path, now I know you are probably 100,000% not like you may have seen TikTok, this whole world here. You may have, but you probably haven't seen like down in the gritty, the nitty gritty. When I tell you that everybody is the same, everything looks the same, all of the workings are the same, all the information is the same, that is a religion.
Yeah.
So I'm with you 100% on what you're saying about that, because that now becomes religion. It's no longer something that you're doing. Because I grew up when I was growing up, I'm not telling my age, but I got teased for being Black goth girl.
Yeah.
We weren't cool back then.
Oh, you
You know
were
what
an
I'm saying?
anomaly. You were an anomaly.
Yeah, I got teased for being the you know, not and but not like being like anybody else besides myself. I'm still country, I'm still loud, I still do all these things, but I'm goth, and I like this different sort of music, and I don't know how to do all these things. This is because I'm a product of my parents. It's not
Right.
because I'm, you know, of anything else. My parents were different, but now you know, it's like you're weird if you're not alternative. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's religious,
Yes.
you know, and it's conformist.
Yeah.
So we're here, like we're on this path. The adversarial path is, to me, the picture of non-conformity. You
Yeah.
know, it is the picture of adversarial for a reason. I go against what's popular on purpose, not
Yeah.
to be cool, but to use the power of that blasphemous energy in my own practice. So, you know, it's like left hand, you have to be able to decide on like what you want. Like I always say, like a lot of people have known me since the beginning. I'm like Dolly Parton. I'm a cartoon character. I've been looking the same since I came out. I don't change. I don't change very much, and that's just because that's who I am, and that's my level of expression. I'll probably look this way until I'm, you know, I'm dead. Yep. But that's it. You're absolutely right about that. It becomes very religious when everybody's doing the same thing for an aesthetically. But you know, I think another reason why is because they haven't gone far enough.
Yeah.
Because once you go far into your practice, once you start getting into your practice that nobody else has to see, you know, that part of your practice where you don't have to record it, you don't have to tell everybody you did a ritual, you do it every day, whether you're tired or sleepy, or you got something to do, or you got to work, or you having a vacation, or it's your birthday or whatever. The part that doesn't leave, that's what starts to bring you out more as yourself. You know, that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I'm happy you mentioned ritual because what I've noticed, and I had a conversation with Beniti and others about this recently. Mm-hmm. I haven't read a book in a long time. Like
right.
I just can't stomach it anymore. It's not that the book doesn't have some stuff, but if I do, I skim the book. I can't even read the whole thing through.
Right.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up is because, as you said, the further you go into your path, what you start to find out is that you do start to find yourself more, and therefore you start to rely more on your own rituals, right, and not the rituals others are sharing with you through books, videos, or anything else. Mm-hmm. Ritual work is essential, but don't get stuck. People out there listening, do not get stuck in the mindset that your ritual can only be done in front of your altar.
No.
That is the biggest problem I think people face sometimes. They think, I can't do this unless I'm in front of my altar, or I can't do this unless it's after midnight or it's dark or whatever. No, your ritual is you. Wherever you are, whatever situation, location, whatever current life event you're going through is the ritual. Absolutely. And when you start to realize that I don't have to be in front of an altar, that if something is currently happening, that normally, and I say this quite often for a reason, something is currently happening, like at the moment, you're in that moment that you normally would be triggered to react in a really just stupid ass way, and you don't react, you just keep observing, you're growing. That's a great marker of growth within your path than sitting in front of altar thinking, okay, I did this. Now what? Now what?
You're waiting for it. And that's when you can get that's what really starts to make it easier, because then you realize that you are the path. You are a magical person at this point. If you wanted to be, you are now it. When you can just say, I don't need, and it's not to be boastful, it's not to be like, oh, I'm the biggest, the baddest, but I don't need a candle to do anything. I don't need, you know, a fancy piece of paper and all of these things, a fancy pen to draw these in elaborate sigils and these expensive altars and all this. I don't need any of that. Exactly. Not for my invocations, not for my workings, especially when you have an organic connection to what you're doing. So if you got like an organic connection to what you're doing, it's natural. You're holistically living spiritually in your life. So I might see something, I might be sitting here working, you know, I work a lot. I'm sitting here working and I see the clouds change and I'm like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? You know, and it's not like it's like your divination never stops. Your connection to your higher self that gives you these messages, it never stops. So you're right. Like, I think that it's important to do in the beginning because it gives you structure. Right. But once you get past the fact that you need, of course you need structure, but once you get past the fact that most of that is done, most of that was taught to us in books by occultists that wanted to give structure and to give you a grounding jump off base, then you don't need to do it anymore. Like, I read books on subjects that I love. Like, I could read about the divine feminine all fucking day long. Like, I love that. But as far as reading things that are giving me instructions, and you know, like you said, books that new people come out with, I will skim it, just like you said. But the reason I don't really like dig down into it and I make it my law is because I got to a point in my practice where I'm like, everybody is venerating this person. There's one specific author everybody loves so much, and we die for this author. This is the best person. Da, 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 da. Where did they get this information?
Bingo.
Was it gnosis? Oh, I get my own gnosis. So is it the same? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or is this person better than me because they have, you know what I mean? So that's why books are good resources, but you can't like, you can't like make it your like your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fact. Because you have a lot of book junkies on the left-hand path too, like any other path. You have a lot of book junkies, and they jump on these particular authors as if these authors are the epitome of what the left-hand path is.
Right.
And honestly, no, they're not. And that's just real from my own personal experience, walking through certain things, learning inside out. They're not the 100% authority on all things. You all made them 100% authority, not me. You understand?
There you go. That's
and the reason I say that is because when people wait for books, there's multiple things happening when you're reading the book. One, sometimes these authors tend to give you their subjective experience, and you're co-signing it. What you understand is if a book is going more into telling you their personal initiation, you should be wary. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll tell you why. Their initiation has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Their initiation may not even be what kind of initiation you need. So therefore, if you try to emulate or replicate what's being shared with you through that book, and then you do the rituals, there's a second thing happening. You're feeding your energy to them. You may not realize this yet because some people are still naive looking at this whole thing wide-eyed, but yes, you are feeding them your energy because you're doing their ritual exactly how they have it in the book. You think they're just sitting there saying, oh, let me just help all these millions of people.
Oh, no.
Help millions. That's not why they're doing it, yo. There's multiple reasons why they do this. And as Tony said earlier, it is true. Power. Yes, we all should have an understanding that some of us seek power. There's multiple levels to power, multi-levels to power, okay? So for me, why I seek power is power to master self, power over myself, power to have order over the chaos within, okay? Then that power expresses itself and manifests itself the way I choose to, right? So some people seek power because they want to control others. I don't care about others as much as like, just trying to like fucking have a following of 1,000 people. No, I never have cared about that. Because at the end of the day, if people ever really met me, I'm very, very to myself. I don't like really being in big groups and crowds. I don't like being around people like that. Hey, that's just me. You understand? So what people have when it comes to power is ask yourself, what is the purpose for you seeking power? Why am I seeking power? Power over self. The Sith, for example, the Sith teaches that you should have power, but really what they mean is the power is the power over self. Therefore, you break the chains that bind you. And much of those chains, unbeknownst to most people, were self-made. They weren't always given or put on you. Those chains were self-made from childhood. Sometimes we created limitations and borders in our life, and we keep never being able to break it because we set it in our minds at an early age. Whatever experience you went through, whatever you faced, it created a blockage and a limit to your power. Therefore, your power really should break through anything that keeps you cased or chained to a certain mindset, a certain level of consciousness.
That's so true, because that's that kundalini, that's the serpent energy that we cultivate, that takes you from one level to another, even if it's by dragging you through whatever situation it is. That you don't give up. The fact that you don't give up is that rousing energy that's inside of you, that's driving. The fact that you come back to this path, just like you said, after you figured out all of these things that have happened in your childhood, and you faced all these things, and you're facing all of these situations, that power that you have, that you're like beat down in the dirt, and you just can raise one finger to be like, but let me just continue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that is like what we cultivate. That's that serpent energy. That's that, like, our internal power. So, but you said something that I wanted to like just
Right.
like touch on really fast, because it's so important. And I've been doing as much as I can, because I woke up one day and I thought, I don't have any kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I have this energy that's coming up in me as I get older, this nurturing thing,
Mm-hmm.
this thing, right? I have to express it. I cannot, like, I can't run from that aspect of myself. You know what I mean? That is a part of my feminine energetic expression. So I cannot run from that part of myself. So what do I do with it? How do I incorporate it? The occult is my life. So how do I incorporate it into my path? Like, I'm obsessed with this path. Everything I do, this is all I talk about 24/7. I watch on TV, everything. People say it's unhealthy. I don't care. Like, this is what I like. So
Right.
it's like, so how do I incorporate that into my life? Like, I'm not going to go adopt a kid.
Right.
I'm like, I'm having way too much fun to have that happen in my life right now. I don't have any siblings that have little ones or anything like that. I need to express this nurturing. So I started to come up with this inner child healing consultation thing that I'm doing
Right.
now. And it's not just healing it's shadow work, but from like a left-hand path motherly perspective.
Right.
Not a mom that's going to like kiss your boo-boos and all of that stuff, even though that is included, if you
Right.
would like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, that's included, but it's coming from a perspective of somebody that wants you to be the best version of yourself with tough answers and stuff. And the only reason I bring that up is because what you were saying about childhood, the things that I have come across, like dealing with people that are on this path, it's almost like a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that I've embraced and worked with that cannot realize why they are treated this way by men. Why
Mm-hmm.
do men treat me this way? Why is it so hard? Everything else in my life is perfect. I can't get over this. Or why women treat them this way. Why do women see me as somebody that they can just, be abusive to, or they don't respect or anything? And then I ask them one question about their childhood, and it all comes together. And I'm like, you're a smart person. You got a business. You've been on the left-hand path for years. It's not coming, because that inner child, that block that's there, is the strongest thing. Like, we can shadow work all day long, but if you don't have a relationship with your inner child and you begin healing there, shadow work is not going to work. It's not going to stick. You're going
Bingo.
to have this beautiful revelation of like, oh, I need to do this in my life. But go back to how you were programmed when you were a child, what happened, realizing these situations, and the situations that they've now been illuminated and reflected in your adult life. Without that, you might as well just throw away your shadow working notebook, because the inner children are the most, they're the most powerful magicians in our entire life. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so
That's a
I just
fact.
had to say that. I
No,
had to
but
say
that's 100% correct.
that.
Remember, in Africa, certain cultures and tribes in Africa, for example, the Dagara tribe in Africa, when a child is born, they don't really hang out with their parents, as opposed to here in the West, in America.
Mhm.
The child's usually with the grandparents, and the elders of the tribe. And there's a reason. The reason, as they, shared, is that child is recent to this world.
Right.
Therefore, within that child are the answers from the other world that we need to find and cultivate those answers for this world that we're living in. So they raise that child differently than what we do here in the West. And they tap into that inner child, which is that inner healer, that inner sorcerer, okay, that heals the self through certain work. And it cultivates and keeps that alive in the child all throughout their life. Now it's getting less and less because, the Western culture has started to really set its, footing in Africa, and
changing.
They're kind of changing and gravitating more towards Western religions, things like that. But some of them still hold on to that, right? Because in those tribes, the inner child is kept alive with the child that is most recent here. And therein is the healer. And they don't want that child to lose that, because by the time the parents get that child, parents are going to pass that programming on to them to beat them out. Not physically, I'm talking about, but beat that out of them by, oh, no, you don't see anything. No, nothing's there.
Exactly.
No, stop talking to that imaginary friend. See, that takes that spirit, takes that energy and that consciousness out of the kid. And in time, that child, by the time they're 7, this is why they say 0 to 7 is the most formative years of a child. Because by the time they're 7, they've been already so programmed and prepared to enter a society and a world, and therefore they have lost a lot of their individuated consciousness. They're now becoming more part of the collective consciousness. And it's all done purposely, of course, we know this, but you're on point. Your inner child should never be lost. You should be able to still enjoy life and let your inner child enjoy that. Okay. There's certain things that we don't enjoy like we should, because we're still thinking like these program adults and not free and imaginative and expressive like when we were children.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. And that dulls your spirit to a point where you don't want to do anything. It can, and that's where there's a lot of things, but I think that's a lot of where the stagnation and the depression come from in the West as well. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't thoroughly enjoy, like, I always think about like the analogy, like, what if you had a big bowl of like your favorite ice cream and you ate all of it and they had one scoop left and somebody took it from you? You didn't thoroughly enjoy that. It wasn't it's not all the way through. So, and the experience that we have that are like rounded out, that is what like brings our spirit into like this whole place. So you're right about that.
And I want to go back to that what you just said. This is very important, and I hope people listen to this. If you had a bowl of ice cream, I'm gonna say it like Tony said, if you had a bowl of ice cream and someone took that last scoop from you, you didn't really eat the whole bowl of ice cream.
No, you didn't enjoy it.
You have been deprived of a complete experience.
Right.
You've been deprived of having the whole experience take hold in your life for you to have a holistic view on things. One of your first interactions was greed and selfishness from someone else because they had to steal your scoop of ice cream. Same like you had a pie of pizza. And there was 4, let's say there was 6 slices, and someone came and took the last slice from you. You're gonna want to punch them in the face. That is the first thing that you're gonna react like, what the hell are you doing touching my shit, right?
Right.
But secondly, you will feel in a moment of incompletion.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, I didn't get to finish this. And
right.
I've shared this before with people. One of the worst things you can do is not complete what you set out to complete in the first place. A lot of us, including myself, we have a lot of unfinished business in our lives, and that sense of incompletion can become a big black hole inside of us. The more it lingers, the more it sits there. If we don't complete what we're supposed to, it will continue growing inside of us and make us feel a void of emptiness. Yeah. And this can consume you if you let it. The more you let things go that you don't complete.
Right.
So you should always complete what you started out on. Okay. And then you're bringing a holistic completion to your inner child and yourself as an adult. Okay.
And
now,
you and you're like standing up for those kids. It's an analogy, but it's not. It's real. Like doing something, like you told yourself that you were going to do something for yourself, and you've been giving and giving and giving, and you don't do anything for yourself, or you sell yourself short, or you don't give yourself that last scoop of ice cream. That's telling those kids that they're still not protected, that there's still that they're still not being okay, like they're still not being completely told the truth to. Do you know what I mean? And so that's what causes them to act out. And that might be, having erratic, what's the word? Negatively spontaneous behavior. That's where the anger can come from. That's where all those things can come from, because it starts there. You're absolutely right. Like completing the things that you started and having these full round experiences and stuff like that, it heals those children that didn't get that, because they're going to act out. They're still in there. Like they are going to act out no matter what. So you're right about that. Like you have to give that to yourself. You have to give it to yourself, even if you have to in the beginning say that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my inner children, whatever. But it has to happen, because they're going to continue to be children and act out until you do something.
That's a fact. All right, so let's see what questions we have. Y'all start typing your questions. I see one question here. Let me scroll up real quick, see if anybody else asked questions. Okay, let me start here, because this address your questions as Demetrius did. Question for Cosmic Serpent. Okay. And if it's, because otherwise we're going to just think it's a general question. Make sure that you address it. Question for Cosmic Serpent. If you're speaking to me, just put Ravana next to it. I understand. But question for Cosmic Serpent. Here we go. What do you do daily to stay grounded in reality? That's from Demetrius. You remember Demetrius?
Yes, I do. Hello. Of course I do. Thank you for the question. But grounding in reality daily has changed for me. I mean, I always have my Daemonic invocation. That's never going to leave. That's every day. You address your daemon. You don't necessarily have to be at an altar to do that either, but that's not something that if I get up and get to my altar, if I'm in workings with other spirits or something, and I'm going to have altar time in the morning, then I'm going to do it that way. But it doesn't have to be. You can lay in your bed. When you open your eyes in the morning, you're addressing your daemon. You're in that space with the aspect of yourself that knows what's going on, and you're tapping in. You are staying there. So that it sounds like it's a crazy thing, but it keeps you grounded. My path has changed. I'm still who I am, but my practices have evolved. I am currently really, really interested in the draconic path. So I do draconic meditations, working Path of the Dragon, with a very simple meditations, very simple, not a bunch of bells and whistles, but I'm focusing on one image that is a very simple thing. And I'm pulling everything out that I can possibly pull from that one very simple image. So it doesn't have to be the draconic path. It doesn't have to be that. I do something that is meditative every single day. Also, I remember to ground in my reality. There was a time that the only people that I talked to were spiritual people. The only thing that I did was watch spiritual stuff. The only books that I read were spiritual books. The only music that I listened to had to have something to do with some dark shit, some occult shit, and that's it. So I didn't make time for my family. I didn't make time to garden. I didn't make time to do anything else. And that was it. And the only thing that I did that wasn't spiritual was probably cook and eat. And then if I could make that spiritual, then I would. But it was because I was going through that crazy time in my life where I didn't realize how important my mundane life, my humanity, even though we're working to transcend the aspects of that condition, we have to ground in our humanity, or we're just going to be living in a box with all the occult knowledge that we could possibly stand on in a box. So I do things in the mundane now, more so, that don't have to do with spirituality. And it was a very hard thing to do, to be like, what are my interests?
Yeah.
At this grown age, I'm like, what do I like that doesn't have to do with stuff that, with the occult, my practice and stuff like that? What do I like?
That's true.
Can I even have a conversation that doesn't have to do with my spiritual, so you know what I do? I go to the grocery store and I talk to the old ladies. I do. I go to the grocery store and they see me and they say, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh man, the price of eggs is just da 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 da," and then we just have a conversation about nothing, and it is so grounding. And then I come on home. So yeah, that's what I do.
Well, that's good though. I'm happy you said that, because there was a question here, but we'll get to that question. So it does deal with grounding, but we'll get back to that. Okay. But Reg 44 asks, you have advice in tapping into our inner child, like just any other additional advice on how to tap into additional child. Yeah.
I know. The advice that I have to do inner child work to start, it's always the same way to start. There is no other way to start. You have to develop a relationship. So if you can't hear them, it's just like working with the spirit. I'm pretty sure the person that's asking this question, if you're here, about, deity work, working with spirits or whatever. You are not watching this man's channel and don't know anything about that. So it's just like working with the spirit. The inner children are going to be difficult to deal with in the beginning, depending on your level of trauma. And depending on the level of openness that you're willing to, accept in your life. Like, if you know that you went through a whole lot of stuff when you were a kid, your inner children can show up like monsters. They can show up dark. They can show up like anything, So developing a relationship with them first. And the way people always say, do the work. How, right? So the first thing would be to create a safe space in a visualization that is going to allow you to tap into that aspect of your inner child that you want to talk to. So if you know something happened to you, or you want to find out why you can't get this out of your mind, or if you know that you had a rough life when you were 6 years old, your visualization, you don't drive the visualization, you create the space for it to happen. So wherever you lived when you were 6, or the best that you can remember, form a place that's safe in your mind, and then you just let your visualization run. I'll give you an example, and I can talk about this person because I can talk about this person. I have a person that I'm working with that is like, all right, so I'm going to have this safe space. And I'm like, all right, think about where you lived, or a place that you like to go, or what happened when you around the age of 12. And the person can't think of anything because the trauma is so bad. There's nothing. Don't remember nothing. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't remember. So the best thing is to come up with something that in general, a playground, a warm bed with some type of comfort, safety. Right. Even if you have to put yourself in a house with 10 locks on the door, visually, with a huge fucking dog out there, or whatever makes you safe, create that, and then just let that visualization run and take it from there. That's the best way to do it, because it's going to be hard. It's hard. It's not easy work. You know what I mean? Unless you have detailed records of everything, a lot of us have rough childhoods. You don't have pictures of yourself. You might not have parents around that can tell you what happened, or it might just be too painful, So if you want to do it personally, get to a point where that meditation is is being created in a safe space, and then you can just take it from there.
Good, good. That's true. Because I know I had a blockage and blacked out what happened to me at 6 years old. It was only now in the last few years I remember a lot of it. So
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
can happen. The level of trauma can make you black that out completely. And
Oh yeah.
all right. So next question. Wait, where'd it go? All right. Yes. Mina says nature grounds me. Nature is a great tool for grounding yourself in this reality.
That's my best friend. Hello, best
friend.
So,
perfect example how to ground yourself in nature. In case people wondering, how do you ground yourself in nature? Go to the beach if you can. I live in Florida, so of course I'm gonna go to the beach. Okay, on the beach, put your feet in the sand, stand there or sit there as long as you can. Let yourself just merge into the vibration of the earth. You'll feel the shift. Okay, not trying to sound spooky or nothing. That shit really does change you. Then after you do that for a while, go into the water. Okay, you may not be around the ocean. Go into the mountains. Go hiking. I like to hike, but I can't do the hiking I really want to do because I'm in Florida. There's a lot of flat land here, so I got to go up to Georgia and Tennessee and places to do real hiking, right? Like mountain hiking. So if you're around hills and mountains, go hiking. Okay, walk up the trail. As far as if it's a hike, if it has a little hill or higher hill, go up there, get to the top, and just plant your feet on the ground. Take your shoes off. Even if your feet stink, it's quite all right. Take your shoes off. Take that shit off. Plant that shit in the ground and feel the wind hit you, because up in the mountains it tends to be windy more often. Take a deep breath. Okay, why I say that? So you can smell the fresh air and let that prana and chi that's within the freaking air just start to resonate within your body and spark and trigger you. Okay, that's just certain examples. You can find your way because nature will ground you. Now, there's certain people that like to tree hug. I'm not a tree hugger. That shit's just too soft for me. I'm sorry, but you know what I'm saying. I don't mind. If I do anything, I give dap to the trees. I give some dap, like, yo, what's up, pound, pound. You know what I'm saying? I hug a tree, right?
But you know what though? I will say this as far as the grounding goes, it's a really, really good gauge for those of us on this path as well, because I live in nature. When I get to a point where I'm like, I'm literally surrounded by green. Everywhere I look is green. But when I get to a point when I don't even want to go outside, I don't want to put my feet in the grass. I don't care. I don't care. It's a beautiful day outside. I don't care. I know that there's an imbalance because nature always grounds us. Like, it doesn't matter how hardcore you are, how much of a badass you are, how much of a dark, left-hand Luciferian you are, whatever it is, that's always grounds you, always. So if you don't feel like doing it, it's an imbalance somewhere. Definitely.
That's true, because in the word Lucifer itself, in Latin is referring to light and air. That's not the elementals. The elemental energy and spirits, I don't know what is. Right. People wake up now, because most of these energies, deities, egregore, whatever you want to call them, at the end of the day, archetypes, they all are connected to certain elements of nature. And that is the way you tap into them, unbeknownst to many. This is why on your altar, if you do have an altar, you're always supposed to have the 4 elements represented. Anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely, but you're right. And I found that you will experience deity connection different when you start to understand and realize balance is important, because like at this point there's certain deities that it doesn't necessarily have to be like the Goetia or whatever. The energies that I'm dealing with, I don't even experience them as things. They feel like pieces of nature. especially for me, and I mean, this is very personal, but I don't mind sharing it because it might help someone. I don't know if who here has worked with the energy of Abaddon before, but to me, Abaddon does not feel like a thing. Somebody says, draw him, I would grab some dirt and earth. I would try to pull some air. I would try to bring you water. I would try to hold fire to you. Like it feels it feels like the element of just the environment, the world, the everything doesn't have a physical, like a physical deific form that's traditional. So when you start to like get deeper with the spiritual work that you're doing, you will start to experience them like you will start to experience them, and they're more primal forms, and the more primal forms are forms of elements. That's the best way I can. It's kind of overwhelming. It's an overwhelming energy, but it is. I did a piece for. I haven't showed anyone, but I did a piece for the spirit Abaddon, and it's literally just elemental. It just looks like the earth on a canvas, and that was the best way I could describe it. If somebody says, what is he, I'm like, here. This is all I have. This is what it is. So you're right about that. They are elemental at their core.
All right, so next question for Tony. How do you decipher true friends from parasites and bottom feeder types? So they gave an example what they're going through. I just cut out a girl from my life that liked the male attention I brought when we were together, but I'm tired of this behavior. So how do you decipher true friends from parasites?
She just cut out a girl. Can you read that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me read the whole thing. So how do you decipher true friend from parasites and bottom feeder types? I just cut out a girl from my life that liked the male attention that I brought when we were together, but I'm tired of this behavior.
So I think one of the main things that you can always do is self-reflection, because if you're dealing with someone that you can't tell whether they're a parasitic person or a friend, then there's an aspect of yourself that needs to just be reflected in that, to be like, why, where is this question, like where is this coming from, like am I being real with myself about this person? Is she giving me parasitic vibes? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's an introspective thing first, but also, how do you feel after you leave that person? This person likes the attention that you bring because you are bringing the attention from males, and maybe she's not getting it. Okay, so is this something that is this a person you're keeping around because of an aspect of you that needs to be fed, or what? So why, think about the intricacies of it. But when you leave that person, this is really how you can tell. How do you feel? Are you drained? Do you feel physically dead, or do you feel like you need to cleanse? I had a person that I felt like I was like, I needed a shower after I talked to them on the phone. Think about how gross that is energetically. Like, you need a shower after you talk to somebody on the phone. It's disgusting. So that person is definitely not a friend. Like this is, and especially if I'm talking to a woman, if you are a woman, your feminine intuition is going to be able to tell you that, because we are communal. Women say, oh, I don't have any girlfriends. I can't be friends with women. I'm an alpha. I'm this, that, and the third. It's because you have deeper to go to touch your feminine energy. We need each other. We're supposed to be around each other. We're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to want to be around each other. We're supposed to want to be around each other more than we want to be around anyone else, our girls, But if you have somebody that's around you that you feel like is there for a bad reason, she probably is. Do you know what I'm saying? So like that's it. Like, don't, and also, when you get on this path, you're going to have test after test after test after test, because your light is on like a damn, what is it, Ravana? A lighthouse.
Yeah.
right? Like your light is on like a lighthouse. So you're attracting all of these energies, these people that need to eat, to feed, to
Yep.
drain you, to take, and all of these things. So you have to have a scanning system for people that come into your life that you have questions about. I'm not saying you should be suspicious of everyone, because that is a negative trait that leads you into like a crazy space in your mind, because it doesn't benefit you. But you have to scan everyone. There are entities that you can work with also that will tell you who's good for you and who's not good for you, and they will get them away from you if you work with them on that level as well. So there's things that you can do spiritually to like figure it out too. But on a mundane level, just feel how you feel when this girl leaves.
Yep.
Like, do you feel like you need to call somebody else and say, gosh, I hate this girl. Ugh, she drained me. You don't even feel like taking a shower, getting cute, done nothing. You just want to lay on the couch. She's a fucking parasite. That's
Yep.
it. That's
Facts.
it.
Facts. Now, let me also say something about the shower real quick. I'm gonna go back to the shower. Sometimes you may talk to a guy and have to shower because you might have to let the water run somewhere. But anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so
No. This girl sounds like it wouldn't be fun.
I know.
It would
I'm
be
just saying.
gross. But you know something? Also, another thing, if you really wanted to do like what Ravana was talking about earlier and facing things, it's hard. Ask her. Why are you here? Why are you around? Why? Tell me. My best friend is on here. You just said her name. My best friend in the whole entire world is watching right now. If I call her right now and be like, girl, what do you love about me? We'd be talking all day. If she called me right now and said, what do you love about me? Why are you my friend? You couldn't shut me up. So if a person is saying that if a person is around you that's like that, and you ask them that and they're like, parasite.
Yep. That's it. They're trash. Get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Beast of the Laboratory. My brother here. What's up, brother? All right. He asked, question for Cosmic Serpent. This is a good question, by the way. Can you give any examples of how healing inner child wounds can assist with communication with the daemon?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the inner child wound and the demonic connection is really important. And I think that the number one thing that it boils down to is like trust and self, like being able to propel the self and like trusting the self. Because if you came from a wounded place as a child where you couldn't trust the adults that were around you, you didn't have anybody, adults that were supposed to protect you that did not, you experienced like we're talking the other day, children that understand what deception is and being deceived and being betrayed at an early age. That's trauma. Like you're a child, like you shouldn't understand what being deceived is. You're working with these adults, you're around these adults that you can't trust. So being able to work with the daemon is a level of trust that you're going to have to build, because you're going to be working with the higher aspects of yourself, that knows what's going on, that can help you heal, that can help you do all these beautiful things, that can lead you down the path that you're supposed to go. But if you don't trust yourself and you come up with this beautiful idea, you and your daemon have this beautiful conversation, you come up with this beautiful idea of how to free yourself from your 9 to 5, or how to fix your relationship, or what to do to start your health journey, or whatever. If you don't trust yourself because you came from a broken inner child place, you're not going to trust your higher messages. So you're going to be all over the place. It's a direct connection no matter what. As I've been studying and researching and like just doing the self-study and taking courses and stuff like that with inner child stuff, there's no aspect of spirituality that you can talk to me about that is a negative aspect that does not have a connection to it, period. It is connected to everything. So as far as working with the daemon, it's about trust, and trusting yourself and being able to have a deep level of it so that it works. Because think about if you do a spell, you do some magic, and you don't believe fully that is going to come to pass, do you think it's going to work? Absolutely not. So if you come from a broken place where you cannot trust, that is always going to be the product. So I think that's the connection.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next question. This question is from La Morena del Fuego. Yeah, I said it in Spanish because that's how
Oh.
she got it written. La Morena del Fuego, which means Black Lady of Fire. So anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she asked, what are some deities you work with for deep internal alchemy?
Well, that's a great question. For deep internal alchemy, when I was working with deities for that type of process, they work. I will say the deepest internal alchemy that I've worked with a deity with would have to be through calipathic work. So calipathic deities, but now I don't necessarily work with deity for like inner transformative stuff, unless it's some aspect of a deity that I've been working with for a long time. Like I don't have anything new, but I will say Lilith Samael, that's very transformative within. Of course, you can always begin with Lucifer because that is going to be the illuminated self coming online. If you're just like beginning, you're probably not a beginner, but that is a definite transformative energy that I've worked with. But yeah, I think there would be aspects of calipathic deities, and then Lucifer would be a great example.
Let me also mention one as well. Kali.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh.
And Kali has various aspects. So you would start with Kali, which is essentially Kali, as we all know, the Dark Destroyer, but then the Kalima aspect as well, because the Kalima nourishing aspect is necessary. Now, understand something. In your inner Jesus, your inner child healing, okay? Understand this. Why the feminine energy is synonymous with the left-hand path is one major reason, and there's many major reasons, but this one major reason stands above the rest. Feminine energy is very receptive. You have to be receptive when you're working with the inner child, meaning you have to open up to receive whatever comes and not what you hope comes, right? We're back to that. If you're not allowing that feminine energy, regardless what your physical gender is, to take hold and allow you to be receptive to receive the messages from the inner child, you're already doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
You have to ground yourself in the feminine energy of receptivity to even hear what the inner child needs to express. So that the daemon and the inner child can integrate. Right. And therefore you get the best and most beneficial working that you most need for that time. Okay. But you have to be receptive. And a lot of men, because of our masculine energy, tends to be very like aggressive and we want to always dominate and all these kind of things. Men have problems being receptive. So this is why the left-hand path in India, especially, you have devotees of Kali, the Agora, that are mostly men, because they understood that in order for them to master themselves and to really tap into the feminine energy, they would have to learn to be receptive and allow the masculine energy not to always be so overbearing. Right. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's something that is that's a healed masculine aspect, but it's also a very common trait of childhood. And it's not because because the West is so fucked up in the views of how men are supposed to be and how men are supposed to be. And, these things, it's so common. You know what I mean? To be like, why is it so hard for me to open up and receive? Probably because when you were young, a man who was supposed to take care of you said that you weren't supposed to cry or you weren't supposed to have any emotions, which to me is abuse. However, this is what the West is all about. You know what I mean? This like hardcore tough guys got to be tough. And if they're not tough guys and they're not men type of thing. So absolutely right. Like the receptivity has to be there in order to be able for anything to take hold, but a lot of times it's not y'all's fault. You know what I'm saying? It's not you guys' fault. It's the fact that you were taught that, and the people that were teaching you that thought that they were doing you a service because you had to go out in the world. But if you didn't do any work on yourself and as an adult, it made you an asshole. Sorry, you know what I mean? It just did, and it's not fair. It's abusive in my opinion. If I had a son, I would never treat him that way. But that's how you got to do it. You got to embrace that and work. Ooh.
We lost you.
I'm here. You got to embrace it and work with it. You know what I mean? So absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So there's another question. And then I think that's it. If y'all have any other questions, please type it in. If there's no more questions, that's fine. But please type it in because we're getting towards the end. We could talk all night. I don't have a problem with that. But, some of y'all might get sleepy. Anyway, so here's the question. Go, and then I'm gonna answer this too because they didn't address it to you or me. So
okay,
you first. How to stop being too kind, nice, and eliminate people pleasing, Stockholm syndrome, etc. So how to stop being too kind and nice, and then I guess the second part of the question is how do we eliminate these people pleasing aspects? So.
That's a really, really, really good question, and a really, really important question, for people that are on this path, because that is literally like, that was such a big chunk of me and my path and all of these things. And it led me nowhere. It got me nothing. It got me zero. You know what I mean? It left me with pieces to have to clean up after someone that I thought that I was being this kind, gentle person to, and it leaves you nothing. So I think the way that you are able to do that is to really come up with something that's going to be solid in your life as far as a grounding, a practice, something that you can dedicate yourself to. So you have to dedicate yourself to something. And then after that, you have to make your pact with yourself to say, I am choosing myself because I love myself more than anything in this fucking world. That's it. You have to choose that. And it's so easy for people to say that have done it, because when you haven't done that, everything in your life reflects that. The people that you are around, your state of emotion, all of that reflects the fact that you've been putting yourself second, even if it's subconsciously. You can look in the mirror and say, I love myself. I'm going to do for me. And then as soon as somebody calls, you literally drop everything and do for them. No is a complete sentence. There is no such thing as I'll say regret. If you did something consciously, do it with 10 toes down, stand behind it and do what you're doing, and then move on to say, every decision that I'm making is going to put me first, and I don't give a fuck. Doesn't matter who else is involved in the situation. But that comes with a real something. And we were talking about this the other day. If you can't do that, how people say, heal. Mm-hmm. How? Heal your inner child. How? Or do this. Stay dedicated. How? The way you do things like that is by doing something in the physical. And what I mean by that is ritual, spell work, physical, something, working with an entity, learning a new course of study, something. If you need something to happen spiritually, you start it here. If you need something to happen here, you start it there. Emotional work, same thing. So if you get to a point where you're like, I keep choosing other people, I cannot, create something for yourself, a dedication ritual, a rite. Go and look in some of these books. Ravana offers classes on transformation, all these things. Like, you can find a resource on an energy that you can work with to help you if you, as your own regular human self, can't fucking do it. So there are things you can do.
That's facts.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me add my 50 cents. Well, no, $1. Okay, let me add my $1 to this. All right. So, how to stop being too kind and nice? Another, simply, Tony said it best. Fuck it.
Yeah.
When you get the fuck it mentality, what I mean by fuck it is this. First of all, understand if you are allowing yourself to be kind and too nice to people, it could be that it's possible that you have a people pleasing mindset because
Mhm.
you lack the attention and affection when you were younger. So
Very
therefore,
true.
you may have an attention issue that
Mhm.
needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
Okay. In other words, you're enabling yourself to continuously be nice to people because some way, somehow, you may feel that you're getting bonus points for being too kind and too nice.
Right.
So another thing, morality.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to say
Yeah.
that. That
Address
is so true.
address your morality.
Mm.
What I mean by morality, addressing your morality is most of the morality that a lot of us have was taught to us or given to us, whether it's through
Right.
religion, whether it's through culture, through your family, society. If it's not your own morality,
That's it.
then you're still people pleasing. Simply this, on this path, one of the jobs is to address your morality,
Mhm.
your programming, etc. It is a monumental task for a reason. The more you filter out people's bullshit that was put into you, the more you can create a healthy sense of what a morality is for you. And that doesn't have to be co-signed by anybody.
Right.
Okay? Your morality is yours. Doesn't have to be co-signed. That's
Right.
the key. Secondly, boundaries.
Right.
The only way to create healthy boundaries is by breaking old boundaries. What I mean by that is most of us have boundaries that were taught to us or given to us. But
Mhm.
in this path, the path of breaking the boundaries, the borders, the limitations is done so much so to create new boundaries, borders, limitations that is self-created with a healthy mindset. So
Right.
you basically have to go address all the boundaries you have right now and ask yourself, is this taught to me? Is this what I was raised with?
Right.
Or is this something that I created for myself once I healed a lot of myself? Because what happens is sometimes we say, oh, you got to have boundaries, but your boundaries are limiting you at the same time. And I
Exactly.
say this for a reason. This path is the path of taboo for a reason. The Agora, if you want to really understand taboo, go read books on the Agora. Yeah, I
Right.
don't read a lot of books, but I did. And when I read about the Agora, you understand that their path was taboo to all of the society in the country of India.
Mhm.
Everything they did was adverse to what society taught them to do. Okay. And the reason why was because they understood that in the taboo, that which is, forbidden is the sacred. The
Mhm.
sacred is not found in that which people think it should be found, which is your churches and your spiritual groups and things like that. No, they realize that the real path is the taboo. And in that taboo, breaking those taboos, you find the sacred because
Absolutely.
it's shunned so much.
I love that so much. I love that
That,
so much.
that aspect is shunned so much
Mm.
that we forget that the taboo was created to keep people away from there because they're afraid if you go in there, you would gain your power through there. That's why society always makes these borders, boundaries, limitations, and creates these boundaries for us not to cross because they know you will get your real power once you cross over and realize, oh, you mean to tell me that a woman is not dirty because she's menstruating?
Right.
No, that's a
Right.
natural process. In actuality, that's actually a very powerful process that a man can actually emulate.
Right.
She literally purifies her body once a month.
Absolutely.
Brothers,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, unless we find a way, we ain't purifying that same way.
You got to do it through the workout
Yeah,
and
working
diet
out
and
and
all of that,
yeah,
But you're so right about that. That moralistic view and the easy way to trail to like start that like switch in your brain. It is so this sounds crazy, but it works. The way to break down your moralistic views, especially when you live here, is to think about lawmakers. Think about where these views come from. Like when I read at this adult age of the reason why women give birth laying down with on a bed the way that they do, when I figured that out, I was like, this is disgusting. All of these moralistic views that we're supposed to uphold to be good have been created by disgusting people. I'm sorry. And so that aspect of yourself that is attached to that is really, really easy to eradicate when you follow the trail of where these views and these laws come from. Just do that. That's easy. If you, I'm not saying that, because the taboo is where we thrive. The blasphemous aspects of us are where we thrive. That's where we get it's where we get our internal shine from when we do things on an adversarial current. We do it on purpose, but if you want to erase those moralistic views that you have ingrained in you, just think about the people that created them and why. Gross. That's gross, not what we do. That's disgusting. You know what I mean? To control, to comply, to scare, to make people smaller, to make sure that the masses stay dumb, to make sure that all of these things happen so that they can stay in power for money. Stupid. It's disgusting.
That's fascinating.
All
right. So Jorge, 8+ Lord of the Flyers. Y'all got some creative names on this motherfucking YouTube. I ain't gonna lie. Y'all got some fucking creative names, yo. I love that. But anyways, what does the symbol of the devil giving the child away really mean?
What?
There's a symbol where they show the devil like kind of giving a child away, right? What does that really mean? Well, I'll take a gander.
Yeah, tell me, because I don't know what symbol. I don't know what you mean.
Essentially, when the devil is giving away the child, it's not that they're giving away the child. Okay, what it means is that the child has now awakened and is free to leave the confines that we've created around it. Okay, so when I give that child away, I'm not literally saying, okay, go away, I don't need you no more. That's not the point. Point is, the child is not going away from the confines that we have limited it all this time. You have to literally let that child be free, right? That's the point. Let your child be free.
Right.
Let your inner child be free, and you will grow by leaps and bounds. We don't really, most of us probably really not tapped into our child.
Right.
Most of us don't know how to enjoy life from that simplistic view of a child. Most of us have too many complex issues that we stay stuck or drowning in and not arise above these things like a child normally does. Think about when you were a child and you fell to the ground and you were crying, and eventually you either rubbed that out and got back to running crazy, but if it was too serious an injury, your mama came to nurse you, right? But a lot of times we just kept running with a bloody knee and everything else. That's an aspect of a child that shows that no matter what,
let's go
rise above this shit.
Let's go. Exactly.
All right, here's another question. Now, this is a good question. You might want to take sink in your seat really good for this question, all right? Piece of Laboratory asks, question for Cosmic Serpent. How would you say that working with the demonic feminine can specifically help men on this path?
Well, one thing you've already said, which is receptivity. Receptivity is going to be a product of working with the feminine aspect of any, of any deific like mask or whatever, but specifically the demonic feminine. The demonic feminine is going to give you more insight to your primal self than any other aspect of the path. You can start with Kali, like you said, you can start with all of these beautiful demonic feminine entities, but what you're going to find that is the common thread through them all is that they all have a primordial story beginning. They are deific. They are the product of creation stories. So this is where the creation story starts with all of these different demonic feminine entities. So when we get into talking about demonic feminine for masculine or for men, if you want to just say man, I'm just saying, I'm just answering the question, you know what I mean? But if it's like, if we're saying demonic feminine specifically for the men, it's like you can have the aspects of the entirety of the feminine current at your disposal. And what I mean by that is the intense mother nurturing aspect, the lustful, primal sexual aspect, the healing aspect, the bloodthirsty aspect, all of these, it's an all-encompassing kind of an energy. So when men work the path, they open up an aspect of them that could potentially have been dormant for a very long time because it's not typical to work that way. I think that on the left-hand path and us on this path, I keep saying the left hand, but I mean, we have to niche that down even further to, us that work the infernal path and the adversarial path.
Mhm.
We see the importance in the feminine. We see the importance in the aspects of the feminine that rest in the demonic, that are the creator aspect, the first aspect, the aspects that everything comes from. So we see the importance of that. But if you don't, you may never tap into that. You may never even tap into that, meaning you're not tapping into your magic. You're not tapping into the current of you that actually can help to heal you. You're not tapping into the aspect that can enliven the energy around you and make change. I'm not saying that the masculine can't, but I'm saying that that is the aspect that's within, because all of those things are inherently feminine traits. You see a badass, a person that can do all of these things, and they have emotional intelligence. Believe me, there is an aspect of their practice that is feminine. It has to be. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I feel. That's how I feel. I feel like you would miss out on a lot of your power, your internal power, if you didn't work with the demonic feminine on this path, because they are all encompassing energies that you don't necessarily house. Now, I feel like the other way around is very important as well. For I was very, 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 oh man, nothing but estrogen, 110,000% feminine. Why do I need to work with any masculine deities? I don't need anything like that. You know what I mean? No solar, anything, nothing, like I was a very lunar, very very feminine type of a practitioner in the beginning, and I noticed the imbalance. So there has to be balance. So I think that that's the importance.
Good. That's a excellent answer, and
thank you.
Definitely when we as men work on this, we're familiar with kind of the ferocious warrior type energy, but we're not familiar with the other aspect that comes from it, which was Kali transforming into a nurturing, caring mother type energy. And that, I think, is the part that men lack, because sometimes men are misunderstood. And I'm going to say why. Okay. We're misunderstood from childhood because a lot of times, depending on the dynamics between your parent, your mom and dad, is a lot of times how you're taught about masculine energy. If you were raised by a single mom, that energy may or may not be so positive. You know what I'm saying? It may be positive, not so positive. So then you grow up as a man with this stigma on you, okay? And then you kind of like end up living the stigma and perpetuating that stigma even more, because you get this mindset that, oh, if everybody's thinking like this about a man, might as well be that.
Right.
That's not the goal. The goal is to overcome all of that. Mm-hmm. Right? Because understand something. One thing we can never understand as a man is a woman's symbolically bloodlust. Okay, right. Her thirst. her thirst.
Mhm,
Okay. Yes, we're speaking on a primordial sexual level.
mhm,
Women are very hungry on that level. Men have to tap out a lot, often way earlier than a woman would like.
right.
Okay. That doesn't mean her hunger has left. Her hunger is still there while your ass still snoring over here. Okay. She looking at you like this motherfucker right now. Right?
The word is insatiable.
Yeah. That insatiable appetite
Mhm,
needs to be satiated, but sometimes we don't do that.
mhm.
But we as men have never really experienced that. Sometimes this is why we always look with a side eye, like, what? You want what? You
Right,
want
yeah.
more? You understand? We
Mhm,
don't understand that. Another aspect that we don't understand is how a woman could be so nourishing and caring, but rip you a new asshole if you get out of line. You understand that? So we
mhm.
kind of like play the victim role when that happens because we're like, no, no, and that's not true, and all this because we are estranged to that. So when you
Mhm.
open yourself up to that as a man on this path, you're opening up to such a new level of consciousness that it has
Mm.
no choice but to propel you, right? Propel you to self mastery
Right.
because we cannot understand what it's like to carry a child, nor do I ever want to carry a child. I'm telling you right now, I don't give a damn who out there is saying that they want to carry a child as a man. That I'm sorry, no,
I I mean, it's going to be painful for anybody.
I'm
You know
not
what I mean?
co-signing that. But they did a recent study. I don't know if y'all seen it. Some of y'all probably seen it. They did a recent test, right, where they created a machine. It's like an electrical impulse machine that they put on a man's abdomen and it replicates menstrual cycle pains.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously, they did this. And you know, just about every man tapped out after a few minutes. It was like, no, I can't deal with
Mm.
this, right?
Oh, yeah.
And in the show Impractical, what is it? Impractical Jokers. They did that same stunt in there where he had to stand up in front of these women and talk about something. And then they started activating the machine. My man just literally fell out and said, how do you all do this? How do you do this?
And try doing it when you got to work and you got baby on the hip and you got, you know what I mean? You got somebody
Yeah.
here, then this is happening and all that, you know? That's really, really, really interesting. I'm gonna look that up because I'm not laughing, but it's an interesting experiment.
All right, that's true. That's that. I don't listen. I don't care how hardcore
Never.
I think I am. I ain't volunteering for that shit, man.
Please don't.
Nah, man. I'll just be
No.
like laid out in the corner, like, nah, I can't deal with this, man. So, but why I brought that up is because it allows a man to understand more compassion for a woman and what she
Right.
goes through. Do you
Mhm.
understand? That's a key thing.
Right.
Having compassion for yourself is a
Mhm.
key thing because sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. Okay.
So tough. So tough on and it's like I've had friends and not just friends, but like people that I decided that I can help or whatever, just listening to people talk. And I'm like, there is a level of compassion that I feel like men have never been allowed, certain men, you never are allowed, you're not even allowed to touch it. It's there. There's a well of compassion. And I'm not talking about compassion for anybody else. I'm talking for yourself. The fact that I am sitting on the other side of the phone, computer screen, or whatever, and was like, do you understand what happened to you was unfair?
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is I'm sorry. And I'm invoking all of these tears and these emotions and bringing all this stuff out. And I actually now I don't want to get emotional, so I'm going to say this and skip over it. But I actually had someone tell me that no one had ever apologized to them and they felt like they meant it before.
Mhm.
And I was like, to me, that's like the saddest thing, you
It
know what I
is.
mean? Like I ever heard. And it's like, and then because I have connection with men who are very open and they can talk and they have emotional intelligence and they're free to speak, and my friends, we can talk, they say no, 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 there's some men that never get compliments for anything. They never get you know what I mean, they never get said good job, they never really get anything for anything. So they, of course, somebody saying thank you, or they apologize to them and they mean it for something that they had nothing to do with, because we were talking about childhood trauma. And I was like, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
That's true.
Never, what do you mean nobody's ever said that to you? I was like,
No, but
wow.
that's
And it just
listen.
opened my eyes.
something that a lot of men, okay, here's a jewel for women, okay? Something that you'll learn that most men have never been privileged to, okay? It's people listening to them.
Right.
Most of the time, men get shut down before the conversation really takes hold.
Right.
And when a woman really listens to a man, you will open him up in ways you cannot imagine. He will become your best friend or whatever else, because a lot of people shut men down, and what were our views or thoughts are always shut down or just erased, like that's just a man being a man and all that shit. But nah, I'm be real. Now your girl Amina, she was scolded on here. Sorry, Amina. This it's a rough chat room. So I'm sorry, but she had posted a question and erased it. Okay, and she said that was her overthinking made her share her struggle. Never be ashamed, Amina. This find more and more. These are some shameless characters you're dealing with, right? We have no shame here. We have no shame. We're very shameless. So right. You're in good company. Now, let me read her question. All right. She said, and it's a good question. In dealing with the imposter syndrome, how do you work on that in the left-hand path?
It is tough. And it's so funny that you asked that question, because not until recently, and when I say recently, I mean in the last like 2 or 3 years, did I even know what that word meant. I didn't ever hear imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like people say, oh, that's you, I have imposter. I'm like, I remember having to look it up. Like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? And it's something that you experience going through anything. You know what I mean? You can experience it going through anything, whether you're creating, whether you're trying to have an authentic experience in life, whether you're trying to do anything, you can experience that. And I feel like on this path, the easiest way to kind of eradicate something like that is to refocus on the fact that not only are you working out of your individuated consciousness, so you're working out of your own flow of consciousness. So if I do a meditation, okay, so you know how you don't get inspiration if you don't do anything. That's me. Like if I'm lazy, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, if I'm just like being a human, a crappy human, my motivation, my creativity, all that stuff goes down. So I feel like because we're doing the work on ourselves and we can generate our own battery, the more you do, the more ideas you get. All that's it's so you, because you're doing it, generating from your own, your own conscious mind and your own subconscious mind. So there's nothing that can cure anything that is like imposter syndrome better than to get your own ideas from your own work and your own two hands and your battery. You know what I mean? Like I did this was my motivation because I did this. And, just staying within that individuated consciousness pattern to create that trajectory for your work, like that's how I feel, because I'm like, I can't compare myself to anybody because this came from me. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not like anybody, you know what I mean? And that's it,
I always like to tell people, own your shit. And I say that quite often because owning your shit literally means that we all have good, bad, ugly, and beautiful about ourselves. But if you can't own that shit and just love every aspect of it, then of course we're gonna feel like we're frauds, like we're not real, right. Like we're not being our authentic self. That comes from trying to compartmentalize aspects of ourselves that need to be integrated. So that's why I always say good, bad, ugly, and beautiful, not just good, bad, and ugly, because it's a whole spectrum. You have to be able to integrate every part of that. There's parts of yourself that are straight ratchet. I know I have a lot of I got a lot of ratchet shit inside of me, yo. But hey, I love every part of that. I just know when to use it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm ratchet out there in the middle of the street acting like a fool. I know when to use it and how to use it, but I love that part of myself because at certain times we all realize, yo, that ratchet shit gonna have to come out right now because this person is crossing the line. You do have to do that. You understand? But then there's sides of you that are very beautiful. And that part you shouldn't hold back either. You understand? Because sometimes men or women, but let's just say women, sometimes women have been suppressed so much that they don't feel sensual or seductive. And if they do, they've heard all this negativity that they tend to cover themselves. And what I mean by that is they tend to wear baggy pants, baggy clothes most of the time. Not that wearing tight clothes is what you're supposed to do as a female. That's bullshit too. I'm just saying they tend to overly cover themselves most of the time. They're the people who wear hoodies all the time. And they're walking around hoodies and shit. And you're like, yo, it's 90 degrees outside, son. What are you doing? It's hot out here. No, but they cover themselves. And that's because sometimes they feel like they can't really be their authenticated self. Okay? Realize all that shit is you. So if you are very seductive, sensual, let that come out, because a lot of times people can't let that part of them come out, and it never breathes, it never lives. And if it doesn't, you're not being complete.
And that's and that is bad. That's bad as far as stagnation goes, because this is speaking from experience, this is speaking from my friends, this is speaking from people that I know. When you get to a point where you are doing the self-judging thing, and it has to do with your expression as far as your the way you dress, your sensuality, all of these things, that is like the worst type of suppression as an adult. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the worst. That's like the most pressure that we can put on ourselves, because that level of expression sometimes is the only complete experiences that we're giving ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like how many adults, are able to like fly around the world and have these great, beautiful, these whole rounded experiences. Like what is the most like intense experience that you're having on a regular basis? Sex. And your expression through that is stifled through not being able to express it due to whatever reason. Like what are you giving? What do you have? You know what I mean? So that's very important to like let it out. I've been there. So and it stops everything else. Stops your creativity, could stop your money.
Yeah,
it's what I mean, stops everything.
Exactly. Now Jojo Bean says, I think it means more of feeling out of place with all people in groups instead of not knowing yourself. Now, Jojo, that depends. We're in speaking an English language that sometimes has various definitions. According to the imposter syndrome definition, it's feeling like a fraud, a phony, or doubting their own abilities.
Right. Like looking at somebody else like, oh, I feel like imposter syndrome. Am I wrong? I thought that's what that meant. Like imposter syndrome, or either imposter syndrome is like where I see you and I'm like, damn, am I is all my expression just because I've binge watched your videos and now all of a sudden I have the same background as you, and is that really my idea or is that his idea? You know what I mean? And that's the psychosis thing. I think that's what that's what it means to me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I say it has various meanings, but essentially, a lot of times we feel like a fraud or phony, or we do feel out of place. Okay. But a lot of times we feel out of place because we feel like we're a fraud or phony. So it always goes back to the self. And not so much just always being out of place with people or groups. It's because you feel out of place with people or groups because you're not letting yourself be true about yourself. Not so much other people, because on this path, we tend to not externalize so much and more internalize everything. So looking at the self is how we flip that around, especially with the imposter syndrome. We flip it around and look at it from our own eyes to try to understand why we're feeling like fraud. You understand why we feel like, we're not being ourselves. You know what I'm saying? We're not allowing ourselves to be 100% us because we're doubting ourselves. A lot of people doubt their gifts and abilities. Okay. A lot of us. Absolutely. And you'd be surprised how many people doubt their abilities. It is a numerous amount of people. But unless you, all right, one thing we do on this path, and I love to do this especially, is challenge yourself. Whatever your weakness is, challenge it. So let's say you're afraid to speak. Oh, sorry, Tony, I'm not. But let's say you're afraid to speak in front of people. You challenge yourself and you find, you know what? I might actually like this shit.
Right,
If
exactly.
you never challenged yourself, you
Exactly.
would never find that out. So
And
you
that's so
doubt your
true.
ability.
There's one more thing I wanted to add to that imposter syndrome thing, which I think that is really important to say. A lot of times, if you are experiencing something like that, it's because of the people that you are around, like your authentic self is getting smushed. It has happened to me. Your authentic self is getting smushed because you are around people that aren't being their authentic self. So you feel like a fraud because you're around frauds. You're around phony people. Do you know what I'm saying? You feel like that because you are around people that are not in touch or in tune with themselves. So you feel like, damn it, something is wrong with me. Like I literally, and no diss to anybody, please don't take this as a diss. There is a when I used to live in California, there's a certain type or group of people that have a certain aesthetic, and they're just like this vapid thing, like, there's nothing behind the eyes, there's nothing there. And it's not in a sexy, hot, like a cool, like a way like that. It's more like in a kind of a weird way. If you stick around those people for too long, you will start to feel like something is wrong with you. And it's just because there's nothing. There's no substance. There's nothing. It's just, they're just animated from whatever place. They're not, they're not authentic. So that can happen too. That can happen too at work and everything.
Yeah, that's a fact. All right, y'all, put in your last questions. We're gonna wrap this up soon. I told y'all we could talk. We'll be here all night, goddamn. It's 10:30. When I last said that shit, it was 9:30. Almost 10:30 now. So any last minute questions, pop them. Y'all asking real good questions.
I even look at the time. Oh my goodness.
That's why I said the shit flew by us. Okay, so ask any last minute questions. Okay. Don't do like most people do. We shut off and then y'all want to message us and email us and ask us all the shit you should have asked while we were on here. So I'm gonna give y'all a few more minutes to come up with the questions. Listen, guarantee someone's gonna ask something right before we end this shit. It always happens. But anyways, yeah, we discussed and covered a lot of different topics this evening. Tony, we're gonna have you back. I'm sure everybody who's in the Patreon classes, because I asked them to come here. They have homework, by the way. They have to discuss what you were talking about in a report.
Oh, no,
but from their understanding and how it applies to themselves. So that's a part of the homework. So yeah. I definitely want to have you back here soon. Very soon.
I'm here.
So we look forward to that. Come on now, people ask questions. Goddamn it, it's Good Friday today. Goddamn, no, I stop.
Oh, it's Good Friday. Where have I been?
Yeah, it is. It's Good Friday. Easter is Sunday, yo. Easter Sunday.
Oh,
man, that's the day the Lord has risen. Anyways, yeah.
No, I got a post that I was saving for Easter, and it's Debo from Friday, and he was like, 50 cents took 5 bullets. He thinks he's gangster. Jesus died and rose again. That's gangster. I can't wait to post it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, people gonna watch. Post that shit. Sunday's right around the corner. Easter Sunday.
Dang, thanks for reminding me, because I didn't even remember. I saw the Easter baskets in the store, but I didn't even remember.
Yeah. Jojo, you're welcome. We'll be doing more of these live streams, more and more. Me and Dimitri is going to coordinate to do another one of the tunnels. I think we've done 4 or 5 of the tunnels of set so far. We're going to do another live stream for that soon. I want to have Cosmic Serpent on here. I'm going to have Beast Laboratory come back. Now, if y'all have any suggestions, now please, before you send me a suggestion, do not suggest the same goddamn people everybody else does. What do I mean by that? Okay, that means that the people that everybody knows on the left hand path, the Michael W. Fords, that's all good. Y'all want to hear that? Go watch their videos. I try to bring people on here who, you know what I'm saying, have a voice that y'all really should hear that voice, and not
Right.
just the average person always wanting these top dogs supposedly in the left hand path. Nah, man, you're
Yeah,
gonna learn more.
chance.
You're gonna learn more from the Cosmic Serpent. That's right. If y'all want to go tell and snitch, go ahead. I'm gonna say it tonight. Y'all gonna learn more from the Cosmic Serpent than you are Michael W. Ford. I said it first here. If you don't like it, that's okay. All right. Now, see, I told you.
Chance, you know?
Yeah, I told you someone was gonna ask a question. Look, see, question for Empress. Oh shit, Empress Cosmic Serpent. Excuse me, I've been corrected. Empress Cosmic Serpent. I like that, y'all. I'm gonna call that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna put that in next title in the next class for you. All right, Empress Cosmic Serpent. How to avoid? Oh, that's good. How to avoid spiritual psychosis. I'm gonna have to sit back on this one.
Well, it is it's just like there's so many aspects to avoiding spiritual psychosis, because spiritual psychosis comes in so many different forms, fractions. It could be, it's so easy to slip into for somebody, and all these things. Like, first thing is that you have to realize what you're doing and why. And it sounds so like I've repeated myself over and over again, but like, your intent is like the number one thing. Like, spiritual psychosis is a product of you not really having a grounded sense of self to begin with. So you can easily slip into these aspects of yourself that make that kind of what am I saying, co-sign or verify these issues that you're going through, right? So spiritual psychosis is like, oh, there a fly landed on me, so Beelzebub must be here, and and now I have to, now that he's here, I have to do this, and da 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 da. The way that you don't let yourself get into that is to have a grounding practice, to have a banishing, cleansing, whatever type of a practice that you need to be able to make yourself feel like you are doing this magic, you are generating this magic, it's not coming from somewhere else. And then having the understanding that you have to check yourself. Like, it's hard for me to say that, because I don't want to be offensive to people that have, you know what I'm saying? Because there's different levels of this thing. And I think spiritual psychosis can be such a slippery slope, because it's a difference between having a psychosis and having gnosis. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you are the type of a person that is like, well, I talk to aliens in the Anunnaki, and I'm an ancient queen, and I can speak snake, or whatever you're saying earlier, I can speak the serpent language, and nobody can touch me because I'm such a spiritual badass and all of these things, and you have this grandiose sense of self, you can probably 99.9% trace that back to ego. And not that it's a bad thing, but it also it's hurting you more than anything. Do you know what I mean? So if you can't explain to me how and why that has happened to you in a practice like you were explained to a 5-year-old, run it back.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel like an authentic thing, run it back. Because I've had people tell me about spiritual experiences that they've had that have brought me to tears. Their gnosis has brought me to tears. And I'm understanding that's a subjective, this whole thing is subjective, but I'm understanding that that's their spiritual situation, but the conviction, the energy, the feeling, and it changed them. Something happened after that made them, that made their life better in some type of way that they could quantify. You have these beautiful experiences, but can you quantify them? Like, what good is a demon speaking to you every day if you have the same issues that you had 15 years ago? quantifying, being able to quantify stuff. Like everything that we do has a practical meaning. I'm not saying that everything is practical, but but if you're here, there's places that you can go. The UFO community will accept you, and you don't have to have any practical grounding or basis in anything. You can just go be a unicorn all day and have fun. But you're here, so you want to have something that's quantifiable, So it's a lot.
So you mean to tell me that I'm not the ancient Atum Ray manifested today? Anyway, listen.
No.
Yeah. Those are the people who are, Tahuti Rabe, like I always say, that, they're the ancient Tahuti manifested, you know what I'm saying? And they got a message for the world. And I channeled and downloaded this last night. And I received this download. And let me tell you guys, those people you got to be careful of. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, that conscious, that spiritual psychosis is the real thing.
Yeah.
It grounds people. It keeps them not grounded, keeps them in a fake reality.
Yeah.
Okay, because when you really understand apotheosis,
right,
starts with self,
right,
deification, not deification, self deification. Then you will understand the difference between spiritual psychosis and apotheosis and mastery.
Right.
In the middle, those who just lost it are stuck in between. Okay. You got to understand, I'm doing this to master myself. I'm not doing this to be the master of all. I'm doing this to elevate, transform myself, not to come and share that I have a message to save the world. Okay. Stay away from people. They say they're here to save the world. They're not. Right. They can only save themselves. No one can save you but yourself. And to think otherwise is the most corrupt mindset that can be possibly given to you. Yeah. And like Eriduli said, that's that angel number delusion in the new age. Yes. You have people even on the left-hand path with this fucking angel number shit sometimes. Okay.
Yeah, it's so strange. It's very strange.
There's a reason why. That's because a lot of people seeped into this path, bringing in what they left, and they filtered it in here, and then it became accepted as more of them came. No.
I guess you're right.
That's not what we do on this path. We don't angel number. We don't do. What we do is simple, 3 words. Okay? Destroy, devour, transform. That's what we do in a nutshell. You have to be willing, and I mean this sincerely, with all sincerity. You have to be willing to be destroyed.
Right.
If you're willing to be destroyed, then you have taken the first step. This step is not going to hug you, squeeze you, love you, honey, I am here for you. Literally, it is a step of destruction. You will face adverse moments and times in this process because of the destruction that's taken place within yourself. Okay. Right. Devouring doesn't mean what most people think. To devour is to take in energy and then transmute it or transform it into something that can be beneficial for you. Okay.
Always.
And then transforming. So when you devour that energy, you transform into a new state of consciousness. Right. But the destruction aspect should have gotten rid of any hints of psychosis you may have.
Right.
Should have gotten rid of a lot of the trauma and pain you had because you faced it head on, right? Confronted all these things. And then you just were obliterated. Okay, if Kali was here, let's say if there was a real Kali and she walked up to you, she's not going to say, she's not going to say, Cosmic Serpent, I love you so much. Let me just hug you. She'll say, come here. We got some work to do. So you don't walk with Kali like, oh, I'm dope. I'm not saying Kali's going to do this, but a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm dope. Look at Kali, walk with me. Nah, Kali's going to be like, all right, let's walk here. She's going, and then she walks you to the edge of a cliff. And you go, why are we on the edge of the cliff? She ain't gonna say nothing. She's gonna go boop.
And push exactly.
see, people want the sweet side of Kali, that I'm gonna love you. No, Kali destroys. That's her first and foremost attribute, destruction.
Right.
She's going to force you to destroy these things within yourself, whether you like that shit or not.
Yeah. And it's like,
Destroy.
it's like if I had a bottle of like moonshine versus like a bottle of wine. You don't have to drink the moonshine to get drunk. You don't have to do this. Like, we're doing this on purpose because we want real change. Like, you can go to the light side of the spirituality. You don't have to deal with Kali who cut your head off and push you over. The angels might help you. Like, go, you know what I mean? Like, they might, but we're doing this on purpose. We want that. That's why the devouring aspect is so important, because you have to build yourself back up after you've allowed all of that to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not happening to you out from your own. Like, this is not something that is happening to us because we're messing with things that we shouldn't, or we're doing something that we shouldn't. We want this. We're walking into the fire. We walk to that edge of that cliff willingly. You know what I'm saying? Over and over and over and over and over and over again. So,
in other words, we want all the smoke. Give us
all of it.
The smoke. You hear?
All of it.
That's what we want. So when we come into this,
yeah, you need to have this, but that's why you need emotional intelligence on this path for real, because the aftercare is got to be for real. Yes, it's got to be for real. Do you know what I mean? Like, the aftercare has to be for real, because you are pulling yourself through this shit on purpose. We're trying to, and I was thinking it, and I'm going to look up the statistic. I don't know if there is a statistic, but I feel like a huge percentage of people that live in this world never even scratch the surface of the true self. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're laying in their deathbed and they don't even know any aspects of themselves, nothing. Like, they just living, you know what I mean? And they just living and they just die. So we're not just in a spiritual system. We are in the spiritual system. We are in the toughest one you can choose. Like,
that's a fact. That's right. All right. So 2 things here, and then we're gonna close this off. All right.
Okay.
Because if not, questions will keep coming. So, so if you feel you are King Kamehameha, whatever, reincarnated, and you actually improve your life for the better because of it, are you still good, or is that too close to the line?
I mean, I feel like if you can prove that to me by some sort of something, then fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if that is your belief and that's how you incorporate anything that has to do with that or makes your life better into your practice, then that's fine. That's what you can. But if you want me to believe it, you're going to have to prove it. And if you can't really prove it to anybody else, if you feel it in your heart, then fuck what anybody else got to say.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's it, but I mean, don't tell me that. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to know how.
Now, I'm gonna answer that in a different aspect. If you need to be King Kamehameha to get improvement and results for your life, my question is, you could have done it as yourself too, without King Kamehameha coming and incarnating inside of you. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it is a fine line, because ultimately, when that process of the king is eliminated, because it comes a point in time you're going to have to face things without that king there. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's
you should be able to improve your life regardless. If you feel you need to be reincarnated, incarnated, possessed, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
See, these are all things that are like altered personas or altered egos or personas people create, because somewhere in that improvement, there's still an underlying broken system.
Right.
Yeah. You understand? Because I have to feel like this altered personality has to be created or reincarnated inside of me for me to improve, which means I didn't feel I could do it myself. Mm-hmm. I felt I had to be, Tahuti of the past, incarnated to do it. That's sad. I'm gonna be honest with you, that's sad, because you're still laying claim that you don't have the power to do it, so you needed something to incarnate inside of you.
And you guys talked about it last, I think it was the last show when you had Beast of the Laboratory on.
Mhm.
The whole Lilith aspect that literally makes me nauseated. I to the point now, I've been doing this for a long time. It doesn't happen as often as it used to.
Mhm.
But the fact is like, oh, I'm possessed by Lilith. I'm Lilith incarnate, so I'm gonna now go out and be this sexual creature. I feel like Lilith would congratulate you if you decided that you wanted to be that, as to empower yourself, but I don't feel like you're her, or I don't feel like you're an aspect of her that's making you do that. I feel like that is you, that you are embracing, and the fact that you haven't embraced it and you've put a face on it might be a jumping off point, which is great. But if you have to transform into a deity to do something, then you still have, it's a masking thing, and that's an inner
It
child
is.
thing for real. You know what I mean?
It is.
We could get deep on that, but we ain't got time to
No,
talk
no,
about
no. No,
that.
no, nope, not all right. This is the last question. That is because it's almost 10:45. Yep, almost 10. It's the last question. What is the best way to truly eradicate religious programming? Mm, mm, mm.
Blasphemy.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but it's true. You said it's a joke, but it's true.
Yeah.
Honestly, the way you break it, I'm gonna just say the way I eradicated it. So let's say you're a Muslim. Okay, let's make you were raised a Muslim. Everything is the Quran. To a Muslim, everything is the Quran and the Word of God, which is Allah. Allah
Right.
subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So whatever. So that's your whole thing. Now you want to break this because you've had an awakening, right? You've had an awakening, your consciousness is expanding, you're starting to see shit for what it is. Take the Quran. Shit, I might even get fucking shut down for saying this shit.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
I'm not gonna say it. But take the
Don't say it.
Quran and do some things you normally wouldn't do with that Quran. That's a way to eradicate it. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say because right now there's a lot of censorship going on in YouTube, so I got to be
Right.
careful on certain things. But all I'm gonna say is just you do the reverse of what you normally do with the holy scripture of whatever religion you're in, or certain things like that. Now, hit me up on Instagram, and I'll share a little more on that.
You don't want to say it.
Yeah, but I ain't gonna. Nah, son. I know how this shit been lately on these social media sites. Nope.
Yeah.
Going out like that. All right. I love y'all for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sister, my beautiful empress. There you go. Because I'm gonna start using that shit. My empress. Thank you for coming out. I want to have you back here as soon as possible. So we'll speak about that.
I'm here.
It was a great turnout. They was feeling it tonight. So I want to keep building on this vibe we got. All right.
Absolutely.
So Demetrius, you're fucktarded, bro. Put pork blood on it. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so let's do this again soon. All right. So give your closing comment and your information for people to contact you for any inner child workings or anything like that, because I'm sure you're gonna get bombarded on your messages. I guarantee you people are gonna start saying, hey, I want to do some work. It happens every time. So just get ready. Anyways, go ahead. Give your
Thank you. Thank you so much. Like, yeah, I this is always it's always a great energy. Of course, I love you. I'm so happy to like see everybody that's there. And if you have any questions, I am the.cosmic.serpent on Instagram. On my Instagram page in my bio, there is where my website is, and thecosmicserpent7@gmail.com if you wanted to email me, but don't even do that. Just go to Instagram and inbox me if you have any questions. And yeah, I'm on TikTok acting silly, and that's it. Like, I don't really have too many other platforms. Instagram is my main page, and then I have my blog there. So that's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Once again, everybody, y'all make sure if you didn't get that, rewind this when it does post again, because as soon as we close, it goes up. Make sure you stay in touch with her if you have questions about this. She dropped a lot of information you need to know about the inner child. And we're gonna keep building on that. Once we have her back on there, we're gonna talk about integrating the child with the demonic a little more in detail. Okay. So
Yeah.
appreciate y'all for coming out. I'm not gonna give my contact information. Fuck that. I'm tired. My mind is turning into mush. Y'all know who the fuck I am. My contact information on YouTube, Instagram. I will see y'all. All right. Blessings to all. Y'all have
Bye.
dark, delicious night. All right, y'all.
Good night.
Good night. All right. You still here? You still here?
Yeah. I didn't